For us here in Lincoln. Today we're kind of pulling back on what we're expecting through much of the area today. In fact, most of it was expected to happen through much of central Nebraska, and that's what's unfolding right now. Just we were expecting to see some rain primarily overnight and into the day today, and temperatures expect to be warm enough that maybe some light rain here and there possible through much of the area today, but really all the winter weather just off to our west. In fact, nearby some winter weather's advisories do exist for much of the Tri-Cities up towards the north as a little mixed precipitation, and now the transition to snow is happening. But this is where that gradient in snow amounts is drastically going to happen through this area, and then a lot more snow expected through areas under a blizzard warning at this point, with heavy snow expected, some visibilities reducing below a mile for quite some time, and those heavy wind gusts. But as you can see, a lot of these winter weather alerts too also extend through much of the day today, if not into early tomorrow morning. In fact, a lot of the blizzard warnings, the winter storm warnings, and the winter weather advisories all continue until 7 a.m. tomorrow for those close by in central and eastern Nebraska. You look towards western Nebraska, some of these will be downgraded by about 7 a.m. this morning as precipitation kind of lingers and starts to taper off in some of those areas. Meanwhile, in southwest Nebraska, blizzard warning continues until about 1 a.m. here overnight and into tomorrow morning. But things have drastically quieted down here in southeast Nebraska. We did actually have some thunderstorms last night in and around south central Nebraska, and now they're starting to see snow. A little bit of everything we can see with these spring systems, and that's certainly what we're seeing out there right now. Rain was kind of moving from south up to the north, but you can also see this system kind of churning and snow kind of turning and then dumping on similar areas through much of central Nebraska. Grand Island kind of just on the edge of this. Kearney's been seeing some snow for quite some time, so if you've got to venture into any of these areas just out to the west, be mighty careful, because the drop off between seeing basically nothing to almost blizzard conditions is a pretty sharp one here early this morning. Temperatures in the upper 40s here back at home, but the upper 20s to around teens too. So these are also areas you would not want to get stranded in with the blowing snow and cold temperatures out and about right now. Here's a look at that line. Drastically just kind of cutting through Grand Island and Hastings at this point. Aurora not seeing much of anything, but Greeley's been seeing the snow as of late, and it's starting to pile up pretty quick. Meanwhile, back here we've had some recent maybe sprinkles here and there, if anything, but most of that is starting to quiet down too. That's not to say we're going to be done through much of the day today, but we'll be quiet for much of the morning here in Lincoln. Meanwhile, snow will continue to dump through much of central Nebraska. I do want to point out, though, in talking about these spring systems and all we can get, snow on one side, severe weather on the other. There is a marginal risk for a few thunderstorms by this afternoon to grow to be marginally severe, maybe with a few damaging wind gusts and some quarter-size hail. So we'll be watching for that just to a county to our east and around the Missouri River, and Omaha included in that, but not much of Lincoln. So if you got to travel out that way, be cautious at any point throughout the day today with what you may encounter. Snow will continue through much of central Nebraska. Here's a look at some of those thunderstorms popping up around this afternoon into the evening, growing and potentially becoming borderline severe and around the late afternoon into the evening. Meanwhile, we'll be watching for a secondary band of snow to kind of settle in and around the Tri-Cities up to the north and east by this evening. Around 8-9 o'clock, that'll be possible before that cold air is cutting into eastern Nebraska and isn't going to sit over us for very long. In fact, that'll be quickly moving on out by tomorrow morning, so we may have some blowing snow left over by the time we're talking about the commute tomorrow. But that transition from a lot of snow to next to nothing, it's drastic and over a short distance, as you can see. But meanwhile, in central portions of the state where this is continuing to dump, we may see half a foot, if not up to a foot in some locations, as those visibilities are also dropping, and that's why we have some blizzard warnings in place. Now, around a quarter of a mile of visibility in and around Broken Bow, a mile and a half or just a little bit less than that in and around Holdridge and Grand Island. O'Neill now below a mile too, with these wind gusts really, really strong so far this morning, and they may even get stronger. Right now they're around 35 to almost 50 miles per hour in and around Grand Island, Broken Bow as you're looking, but through much of this morning we could see some wind gusts as high as 55, almost 60 mile per hour wind gusts kind of develop, and then you can see it's also starting to move into eastern Nebraska going into this evening, and then we'll have some wind gusts then out of the north with some of this light snow moving around, so likely that we'll see some impacts later on tonight and in the overnight hours going into Tuesday. In fact, that'll leave us colder. Highs will only be in the middle to upper 30s tomorrow for a brutal day tomorrow, but it only lingers for about tomorrow, and then we actually improve drastically. Not seeing all that much snow. We'll rebound from the 50s to the 60s to close to 70 degrees on Friday, with not much to talk about in the way of precipitation going towards Easter weekend, besides a few rain chances here and there. So continuing to track this system through much of of the morning. Of course, I'll be posting updates to our social media and online. Stay tuned for that, and be sure to check some of those 511 maps if you've got to travel anywhere out west.